Hi everybody, welcome back to 30 Days Until Done, or I should say, for a lot of you, welcome. We're starting a new month on January 1st, obviously, new month, new year. Happy New Year to everybody. What we're starting off with is a new idea in 30 Days Until Done. So far what we've been doing is developing ideas, working on prompts, getting rough drafts out, and we've been doing that since June. It's now January, so you can do the math on that. You've got a good body of work. A lot of you have been doing this every day for the entire 7 months now, and that's good. I think that's really wonderful. And poetry is good for a lot of things. It's great for developing ideas and developing our feelings and going through this. But if you really want to have great poetry, poetry lives in the revision, right? And that's what we're going to be working on for at least this month. I'm not exactly sure how long I'm going to be going with this. I could very easily go for an entire year on poetry revision, and we'd take a look at what does that mean in different ways. I'm going to be going for at least a month on revising poetry, and depending on the reaction, depending on where we are, maybe beyond. So this might bleed into February or something like that. Okay, so we're going to start off today with a few ideas for revision. Revision is a serious and well, a lot of people don't like it, and the reason they don't like it is because it's uncomfortable. You have to ask yourself questions. You have to do all sorts of things, and I really think that this is the most creative and most inspirational and most fun part of poetry writing is the revision, because you can really get in there and you can focus on things on just the line level, and you can see what those things are doing for us, and you can really find new ideas that you never would have thought of before. Okay, so I'm going to start, before I even start about revision, I'm going to talk about how the lessons and the homework is going to go. I've been giving you prompts. We've been doing basically one poem a day if you've been following along. That doesn't make a lot of sense here, right? First, let's compose a poem and then revise it. No, that doesn't make sense. It'd be much better for you to go and find some poems to revise. And especially if you've been following along 30 Days Until Done, and you've got like a chunk of poems, like let's say 40 poems, go and grab those, right? And as we go on, we're going to be talking about what does it mean to revise a collection as opposed to an individual poem. That'll come much later in the month, and so it'd be good to have a collection. Find some poems that you like, they're all right. There are going to be some that are going to be kind of ruined through this process, right? Because it's very easy, or I shouldn't say are going to be, might be. It's very easy to ruin a poem through too much revision. It's very easy to turn into mush. So as you're working on this, keep an extra file open with your originals, and then you can compare the two. And sometimes that's the process too. You go back and say, you know what, this was better before. I'm just going to go back to before and revise it a different way, or not revise it at all, that kind of thing. But you have to be willing to kind of go through the process in order to learn how to revise. Be willing to revise badly some of the time. It's really important, it's very, very important when you're doing anything creative writing that you keep an open mind. The biggest thing I often have to fight with is people's preconceptions, right? They might have heard something and say, well, I have this philosophical belief, therefore this must be true all of the time. It doesn't work, right? As you might have had a very influential teacher and said you should revise this way. That's great, and that helps. But there are multiple voices, and there are multiple ways of approaching poetry, and that's why Shakespeare, who writes sonnets, is great, and Charles Bukowski, who doesn't write sonnets, is also great. And they couldn't find two people who were more different, right? And so this is how we're going to approach it. We're going to take a look at a lot of different things. If this isn't the way you've done it in the past, that's okay. Also, I'm going to say whatever I say. It doesn't work all the time, right? It just doesn't. There's nothing you can really say that works 100% of the time in creative writing. And so I say, what's important to have concrete imagery? And you find one thing that doesn't have concrete imagery, and say, well, it works. Of course it works. Sometimes everything works, right? So just keep an open mind. In other words, we're gonna stay loose with this. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start off with the concept of what is a poem. And when we're revising, what is our goal that's pushing us always? And it's to get to that thing that is a poem, right? How do you distinguish poem from something that is a poem from something that is not a poem? Because after all, you can have prose poetry, you can have really novels that are poetic. Last Exit to Brooklyn, to me, is a long poem. It's just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so what is a poem? A poem is when what you've written means more than what the words mean. And that's because you've used sounds to create an emotion in your reader. You've used line breaks to either compose multiple ideas or to create tensions. And so we're reading the poem and it means something, yes, but there's this feeling that goes beyond that thing because of all of the other things. It goes beyond intellect, right? And that's really what the poem is. A poem is a group of words that are written in such a way that their meaning goes beyond intellect. That's a good definition. Right, and that's why rhyme sometimes works. That's why read Dr. Seuss out loud. That's why you smile at Dr. Seuss, right? Some of his ideas are silly, but not always. But they make you smile just because the way you say them. They could be nonsense words. Read Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky, and many of the words have no meaning whatsoever. Many of them had no meaning at the time, but now we've adopted them as words, and it's just because of the sound qualities that he's given to those things. That's what a poem is. And so as we're revising, that's what we're looking for. That's the reason behind a lot of the revision things. It's okay, how can we get to this thing, this higher meaning, this higher idea beyond intellect? How can we get there through the sounds and through the juxtapositions, through whatever it is we're going to do? Okay, so you're going to be choosing some poems. I'd choose, how many would I choose? I'd probably have at least 20. Right, that you've worked on. If not, if you don't have 20, that's okay. Just get whatever you have. We're going to be trying to get to this poem, and what we're going to be doing today. Okay, so your first homework assignment today is to find some poems. The second homework assignment today is to choose one, and you're going to try to find the heart of that poem. Right, and this is going to become more important in the next couple of days. What do I mean by the heart of a poem? Okay, so. We're going to be working mostly with short poems for this month because it's just hard to read a long poem and have the idea conveyed through these little videos. And generally, what you want in a shorter poem is something that's something that has some sort of clarity, some sort of meaning, some sort of idea. The heart of the poem is what it is that we're trying to get through this poem, right? And it's really important you understand that before you proceed. I'm going to read a poem now by one of my favorite poets. His name's Ted Kooser, and it's a poem called Flying at Night. Flying at Night by Ted Kooser. Above us stars, beneath us constellations. 5 billion miles away a galaxy dies like a snowflake falling on water. Below us, some farmer, feeling the chill of that distant death, snaps on his yard light, drawing his shed and barn back into the little system of his care. All night, the cities like shimmering novas tug with bright streets at lonely lights like his. Right? Okay, so what is the heart of this poem? The heart of the poem is the comparison and the interconnectedness of people on Earth with all of the universe. Right? That's really what this is. So he's flying at night and he looks up and he sees these galaxies and he realizes there's supernova going on. People are, entire planets are dying. And he looks down and he sees some farmer flipping on his light, and he's thinking that the connection is that the farmer feels the death. So of the star, right? So he's like turning on the light to fight that feeling of loss, even though he's unaware of it. Okay, so that's the heart of the poem. And why is that important? Well, because he's going into this poem. Everything. There's no redundancy here. There's no empty words. There's no missing ideas. It's always focused on that thing, on that interconnectedness between the universe and the planet. Now, how do you express this? Okay, so the first thing, what I want you to post down below is choose your poem. So you can say, just write down. I'm going to write, I'm going to revise poems that have to do with this or something, So if I were going to say, I'm going to revise poems that have to do with shopping, I don't know, right? And then for today's poem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find one of those poems and maybe post down below, and then I'll say, really the heart of this poem, what this poem is about is whatever, right? This poem is about how people are too involved with consumerism, or how people are whatever it is that they are. Okay, and when you have that down, post down below and we'll talk about it, and I will see you tomorrow on 30 Days Until Done.